There's a fly in here and I hate him. Hello everybody and welcome to another one of these fantastic tier list videos. My name is RabbidLuigi. Last time, I don't actually remember what we did because it was so long ago. We haven't done one of these videos in a little while. A few things, like I went on holiday. I had a nice week with the family. It was pretty nice. Slightly before in the UK, the thing that shall not be named for monetary reasons, it's got kind of come back again, you know, second wave time, maybe. I don't really know. And then the week after, you know, I was kind of feeling less motivated having come back from my holiday. I was like, do I want to sit here and talk about games? I mean, I do. I'm doing it now, but, you know, I needed time to get back into my usual work. But regardless, we're back. We're making videos. My phone has just about come back alive. It was dead, it's fine, ignore that. But I'm here with you today because I want to talk about Grand Theft Auto games. I thought it'll be fun to get back into these kind of videos. It's something fairly simple. I'm not talking about a whole franchise for an hour, that'd be a bit insane. Instead, we're just going to talk about Grand Theft Auto games for about, I don't know how long we're going to be doing it. I'll be flying through them, hopefully, and, you know, there's a fair number here, mainly because, you know, you got your numbered Grand Theft Auto games, but there's little spin-offs, there's little extra things there, there's DLC expansion packs as well, so it all adds up to be a little bit more than just 5 games. You know, Grand Theft Auto 5 is the latest one, and, you know, 6 will come out when, you know, Rockstar are ready, and they're definitely not at the moment, but, you know, we got a fair spread of games here. Some you may have never heard of, which is going to be very fun for me to explain for you right now why they aren't so good, or if they're actually amazing and you're missing out. My dogs are outside and they're just barking at everything. I feel like I should just get on because they're not going to stop. The fly's still in here. He's fine. He can do his business. I don't give a shit. But I'm going to start off, as I do with every tier list video, by working out the parameters in which we're working in. At which point I need to put something in the S rank. And for me, I don't really have a favorite Grand Theft Auto game. I like a few quite a lot, and we'll get into that as we get there. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 is the most well-rounded Grand Theft Auto game. It's hard to say it's the best, because there are parts to it that I don't enjoy as much as older games, and, you know, there's little things. I like the humor's really good in it, and the world's good. There's a lot of little itty-bitty things that add up to make basically one of the best games ever made. We should be mentioning that fairly frequently throughout this video, that most of the games here are really, really good. We might have a very top-heavy tier list, but Grand Theft Auto 5, when it came out, it's been 7 years now, weirdly, is a lot of fun. It's what I would like at the time, next-gen Grand Theft Auto game to be. It expanded on Grand Theft Auto 4 and all its expansions, and kind of gave us a larger equivalent of Grand Theft Auto, and the fact that it comes with GTA Online, which is its own kettle of fish. I don't even know if it's on here. I can't tell. My camera is standing on something which is it's covering half the screen, but I'm gonna presume that it's maybe not on here. I don't think it is, but Grand Theft Auto Online is actually incredibly fun, kind of its own crapshoot of random things happening and having to deal with human players acting like dickheads, but it's got some appeal to it that I really enjoy, and it's hard to compare it to, say, Grand Theft Auto 4, which one's better, but I think I might enjoy 5 the most, even if it's not technically and factually the best game, because Grand Theft Auto 4 has a lot of little details that are missing in GTA 5. So I should probably start calling them GTA, because this video is going to be long if I have to say Grand Theft Auto every time. First on the chopping block, which you might not have heard of, depending on where your mind was around 2009-ish. I actually don't know when it came out, but Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. It's probably earlier than that, because it came out on the DS and the PSP. It's a portable Grand Theft Auto, and you can see Grand Theft Auto Advance in there. That's also portable. We'll get to that in a bit. Chinatown Wars is surprisingly good. If you go into it expecting GTA 4, GTA 5 levels of polish and the amount of content that those games have, it's nowhere close. It's a portable game. That's insane. However, for what they are, which is an attempt at trying to knit together classic GTA, which we'll be getting to, and more modern GTA, which has had, you know, more crime focus, more, you know, roaming focus, I suppose. It's really impressive. Really, really impressive. I don't think it's one of the best games here, but for what it is, it's a lot of fun. Honestly, just have a go. It's kind of crazy it's on the handheld as well, because for a long time, I think it might be beyond advanced. You don't often get Grand Theft Auto games on Nintendo consoles, but the fact that it's here and as good as it is surprising to me, and I really think you should play it if you haven't already done that. I don't think it's S, that's a bit insane, but I think A is a good place for it to be. It is shockingly good. Honestly, a DS, I keep nearly saying 3DS, a DS Grand Theft Auto game, also on the PSP, honestly pretty incredible. On the flip side, Grand Theft Auto Advance, from what I remember, I've only played it like briefly once. Not as great, not as fun. It's kind of not the right console for it. I admire the efforts, I admire what they tried to do, but it's got too much to do without being terrible. And it's not terrible. I don't think it's a complete failure, but it's definitely down there. It's not a D rank, it's more like a C rank. I want to put that there just because I, convinced myself otherwise, but it's not really, it's trying to do too much with too little. And Chinatown Wars tried to do a lot with not a lot, and really got the most out of the DS and the PSP. I feel like they got the most out of the Game Boy Advance, but couldn't really do much more and be anything like any other Grand Theft Auto game. It's better than I think the early GTA games, but honestly, you could miss this one out, and I feel like you're not missing out on anything at all. At least with the older games, there's a sense of history. This is just a bit of a weird thing to be doing, and I don't think anybody watching this is going to say, hey, you treated GTA Advance really badly. I don't think this game's got many fans, but, prove me wrong if you want. Just looking ahead, I might want to sort of move some of these around, because it's going to get very confusing talking about Grand Theft Auto 4, is it Lost and the Damned or Lost and Damned? And then talking about GTA 4. So I'm going to talk about GTA 4 first, and then we'll get into expansion. Hang on, I've done that. Done that. Okay, GTA 4. I didn't play for a long time because, surprisingly, I played GTA 3 growing up. Probably shouldn't have done, but played it growing up. Wasn't that interested in GTA when I got to the age that it came out. Could not remember that for the life of me, but, turn of the 2010s, 2000s. And then it had expansions to it, but the actual base game is really impressive, because I did have to come back to it, obviously. It's very hard to compare it to GTA 5 because it's trying to be the same kind of game. It is the same kind of game on the relevant console, but the difference being that GTA 4 has a different kind of tone to it. Very different. It's a little more humorless. It's a more, not that gritty realism, but more brown. Everything's a little more brown, a little more depressing, more downbeat, but it has like sprinkles of GTA insanity in there, which is kind of what took over in GTA 5, because everybody loved it, so they wanted more of it, and that's how we got the game we got. But what I love GTA 4 for, that works, is the little touches. It's the little things it does, the animations, how AI works in certain ways. It's a lot of fun to mess around in a world that's trying really hard to be depressing. It's bizarre from that standpoint that you'd think I'd enjoy messing around with GTA 5 more, but technically GTA 4 is an impressive fucking game. It does so much. The physics engine is capable of a lot, and I know there's ways to break it, but it does certain things that for some reason are absent in GTA 5, like animations, like fire effects are different, how certain vehicles explode and degrade over time. They're much better in GTA 4. There's a whole video on it by Crobycat, and it goes into the details that I feel like pushes GTA 4 above 5, but I enjoy parts of 5 a lot more, and it's very hard to compare them. I'm not so sure which one's better. In my eyes, I enjoy messing around with GTA 4 more, but I would say overall, as a package that I would be proud of, I would be prouder if I'd made 5 than 4. So I don't really know, but that's not what we're really here to tell. I'm going to put it in S, because they're both one of the best games of all time. It's just splitting hairs on which one's actually better, and honestly, it doesn't really matter. I took a little break there because I wanted to go on Wikipedia just to check that it's GTA 4 The Lost and Damned, not The Lost and the Damned or Lost and the It's that subtitle. It is a story expansion with some slight tweaks here and there on GTA 4. How do I feel about it? It's pretty good. Is it really worth considering as its own separate entity? Technically it is, because you can't really play it about GTA 4, but it's not really as exciting to talk about as GTA 4. What I find, weirdly, is that the appeal of the DLC is that it's got more story focus to it. It's got greater emphasis on telling a story, because GTA 4 and 5, and really most GTAs, they tend to lose the sight of their story among all the open box, sandbox craziness. So the focus is more on story, but I don't love many of the stories that these DLCs tell. So it's hard to really judge them, because they are built upon a very good game, but the actual appeal of getting that DLC is for a very specific thing, and that very specific thing isn't that appealing to me. So it's hard to judge. It's hard to really decide where the Lost and Damned go where it goes. But I feel like it doesn't offer as much as the base game of GTA 4, because that's kind of impossible, but it's very hard to judge DLC packs alongside full video games. So I'm going to put it here, because it's not bad, it's not even average, it's really good, but I can't judge half a game compared to a whole game, and you know, I'm going to be doing a lot of that because there's actually a whole lot of DLC on this video. So Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories, because I've forgotten and I had to go to a Wikipedia page to actually work this out. I know which games are which, but I forget where they come in the release schedule of Grand Theft Auto, and this one is, it was after San Andreas, but it's a prequel to Vice City. No, it's actually a prequel to GTA 3, which I suppose makes sense when you think about it, but it's its own separate game. It's kind of its own separate game. It's trying to tell its own story, definitely, but it is built on previous GTA engines, and it is kind of it's not a giant leap forward for the series, but it's definitely a narrative step backwards in a prequel. There are dogs outside while I'm trying to work out where GTA chronology comes from. Oh, they're so loud. They're so adorable, but they're so loud. I'm trying to work. Albie! But what I like about Liberty City Stories is it is actually an attempt to become a prequel by showing the deterioration of an entire city environment that then leads into GTA 3. It is an admirable attempt at doing so. The problem is that it does feel like just kind of reheated previous GTA games. That's kind of my issue. Apart from like the massive giant releases in this series, every time they try to do a little sidestep, a little prequel, funny little spin-off thing, it just feels like they were reheating previous games. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't make them D-rank, but it makes them less exciting to play, because you're just playing effectively a sequel, prequel thing that isn't... When the series makes big leaps forward, I'm excited. When it doesn't, it's kind of like, you know, you could be doing more. And it's not bad, it's just not an S rank. I'm going to put it here before I forget which one it is. Because look, they've all got red writing. I'm trying so hard, but it's so hard to remember all the little details of Grand Theft Auto. This one I remember though. Oh, pick me. Because this is Grand Theft Auto, one of the London games. I think there's a subtitle in there somewhere, but it's one of the London games. So before, I think even before GTA 2, which is also there, but before we did anything with any kind of 3D space, it was Grand Theft Auto, based on the first game, and you can even see that with the yellow text, but based on the first game, in London, for all that changed. It didn't change all that much, but it is an old style of Grand Theft Auto, which I don't really love anymore. It was a bit weird when it came out, Grand Theft Auto, on the original first one. Maybe I should talk about that. We'll bundle all these three together, and we'll talk about them all right now, okay? Because classic GTA is very niche. It's a very niche love. It came out at a time when two-dimensional racing games, two-dimensional car games, were kind of being discontinued. We weren't really doing them anymore because it was 3D graphics. We can do anything now. So GTA being the way it was, a little bit off-putting, but it's not terrible. It's just a little bit dated compared to where we are now, where we have now 3D styles. We've got third-person racing, not really racing, but you know, third-person car stuff, exploration with cars. You go back to GTA, classic GTA. It's a little tricky, little tricky to swallow, and it's lost a lot of the... It didn't have it in the first place, but it doesn't have a lot of the same charm as older games. You can still have the police chase after you. That's kind of where this came from. The original game had the police chase after you, kind of as a bug, kind of as a strange little occurrence that the developers kept in because it gave the game some character. The game did not have a lot of character without it, and when you're not in any conflict with the police, you do notice how much the character is stripped away, and it's a big part of this franchise. You really notice it when it's not there. So as much fun as they are, and as much controversy as they caused, I can't be too happy with old GTA. So I'm going to do that there. That's probably terrible for some people, but it's a rough game to play. There were improvements made with these two, so they can go and see. They're around about the same caliber as Grand Theft Auto Advance, which is a fish out of water as a video game, but at least it's self-contained. We can appreciate it for that. We now have so many less GTA games, and I can kind of get a grasp on which ones are which, sort of. After 3, I can do 3, then there's 4, oh no, there's San Andreas in there. Don't worry, I got this. Grand Theft Auto 3, I most recently played on an iPhone, which tells a lot. It really does say a lot. I did play it, weirdly, growing up, because I went to a friend's house and, you know, went up to play their PlayStation 2, and had a lot of fun with it. I think the first thing I did was I had a big fucking fuel truck, and I drove it into a petrol station and blew the whole thing up, and I was sold. I was like, this is weird. You can't do this in real life. You tend to die if you do this in real life. I like it. I like it a lot. I think that's part of the appeal of Grand Theft Auto. It lets you do things that life doesn't let you get away with, and it's so relatable in that regard. I want to drive the wrong way up the road and see what happens. It won't work well for you in real life. Tends to work out okay in video games. And Grand Theft Auto 3 was the big step forward for this franchise. You can argue that 4 was high def, 5 was, you know, you got online play, 3 was 3D. It's that way for a reason, and that is a huge bit of progress for this franchise. It's not really something that you can ignore, because once you see where it's gone from there and where it was before, Grand Theft Auto 3 was massive, and it kind of is massive literally because the world's pretty huge for that time. The only issues are kind of technical ones, and the fact that older games have refined like animations and graphics, and the protagonist looks like, you know, a block of nothing. I do enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. I kind of like how stripped back it is. It's kind of the purest essence of Grand Theft Auto, that it's just, here's a world, here's a character who, you know, doesn't really look like much, and you can just destroy the world if you like, and I did plenty of that, and I will always love it. And I don't think it holds much of a candle to 5 and 4, but it is still just incredible for what it is. You know, I forget what year that came out in, but it is goddamn impressive. As much as I'd really love to decipher the rest of the DLC packs, I want to talk about San Andreas, because it's a lot easier to understand than Vice City Stories. There's the Ballad of Gay Tony and Vice City itself, which is not a DLC pack. I'll maybe touch on all 3 of those at the same time, maybe leave Ballad of Gay Tony for another section, but San Andreas is kind of the refinement job on GTA 3. They're different games, but they're intended to be similar. I mean, it's the same engine, the same style of GTA before you hop into high definition, but it's the refinement job that GTA 3 really needed. And I don't dislike GTA 3 for not being refined, but I do love San Andreas for being a little bit sharper, a little bit more, you know, just sort of, everything's just given a bit of a facelift, and the game's more fun to play as a result. And I can't really critique it much. I can't criticize many of the higher tier of San Andreas. I can't really critique a lot of the really higher echelons of GTA games, because they're just so good at what they try to do, which is this large crime-filled world. You can explore it, you can blow it up. It doesn't really matter, and San Andreas really honed in on that to be a higher focus of that. What I remember most was the controversy about it, and, you know, GTA has always been controversial, but San Andreas is where it actually got an age rating change, because it had the hot coffee minigame, which is a clothed sex scene for the most part. Actually became adults only rather than M for mature. So it's kind of where GTA kind of got back into its stride with making headlines and causing problems for journalists and parents and all sorts of committees. But it's just a lot of fun. I can't really complain. It's just a lot of game and a lot of very good game, and I'm gonna put it with the rest of the lots of good game, because that 4 there, that's just the best of that genre it could be. And, you know, at some point they're gonna make a 6th, and I hope it's halfway as good as any of those, because damn, it's a good time right there. I don't have a lot to say about the Ballad of Gay Tony. It's kind of along the same lines as The Lost and Damned. It's a DLC expansion to GTA 4, it's more of the same. It's got a few tweaked activities, but ultimately it's riding on the coattails of a pre-existing game, and the changes are the story. I do like the Ballad of Gay Tony more than the Lost and Damned, but I don't feel like I should talk about them separately because it's just more of the same, you know? It's just something which worked, let's do it again. So I'm going to leave that there because I want to tackle Vice City and Vice City Stories. Now, the weird thing, despite the name, they're not that similar because Vice City was based off GTA 3, and I know San Andreas was based off GTA 3, but Vice City Stories is based off San Andreas and based off the refinement job that happened there. So, a little hard to split them, but they're not designed to be the same game, and in fact, Vice City is a standalone game. Vice City Stories is kind of like its own little, oh, the dogs are here. I think they're gone. I think we're in the clear, but what I remember from my brief, I think actually, Vice City Stories originally came out on the PSP and then got ported to the PS2, so it's a bit of a different style of game. I know I was talking about handheld, but I think that wasn't where it started, but that's kind of another example, and it does kind of change the focus of where they went, because I remember it being really good on the PSP, but it came over to the PS2 and it wasn't quite as good, so I think that might impact something. Grand Theft Auto Vice City is basically just more Grand Theft Auto and more sort of GTA 3 style Grand Theft Auto, and that makes it a little bit tricky to kind of thread the needle between 3 and San Andreas, but it's more 3 than San Andreas, so, you know, it's just a very confusing tier list, but we'll get to it. What I'm going to do to make things a little more simple and kind of make me feel happy about my tier list, Vice City Stories is going in here because it's originally a handheld Vice City. To what? It's originally a handheld Grand Theft Auto game. That's fine. If you had that, it will be actually... If it was just a handheld, its whole life be up with Chinatown Wars as being a very good handheld. The problem is, at no point did Chinatown Wars try and make the leap back to home consoles and try and be the same kind of game. Because as soon as you do that, you notice the shortcomings. You notice the technical issue, not even technical issues, but the lack of technical prowess, I suppose is the best way of putting it, because it's not quite the same on the PS2 as it was on the PSP. It's a bit like when Peace Walker was ported from the PSP to the PS3 for the HD collection of Metal Gear Solid. You do notice little things that you wouldn't have maybe noticed on the PSP, and Peace Walker did fine. Peace Walker is still an incredible game. Vice City Stories, kind of, you do see more of the holes, but Vice City itself is actually still an incredible video game. It was never designed to be a handheld. It's actually just more home console Grand Theft Auto, and it's still wonderful. I can't think of many other places to put it than S, and it might seem that it looks like an F. The actual shape of the tier list looks like an F, but you should know that those 5 games in S tier, you can pick up any one of those. You got a ton of really good video game there, and you wouldn't complain. I don't think you should have any complaints. So yeah, that's my Grand Theft Auto tier list. What do you think? Are you confused? Looking back on it, I'm a little confused myself, but it's effectively split up into the main big releases in Grand Theft Auto, all of which, after, say, you know, the 2D period kind of got done and dusted, all of which are incredible, some of the best video games of all time. Then you kind of got the DLC packs and some of the handheld games, and C downwards is kind of where you get the classic style of GTA, which on its own is good, but we are basing this tier list on how these games compare to one another, and for that reason, kind of have to put them C and below. But what do you think? Am I very wrong? Do you really like Grand Theft Auto Advance? Tell me if you're a fan, because honestly, I want to meet you and find out how your brain works compared to... I mean, it's a good game, but it's not that great. I can't be... Well, anyway, just digging a hole here, don't mind me. But thank you all for watching. What tier list would you like me to cover next? I've had a few ideas. I think once I'm up and running and back used to making this style of video again, I want to do like Kirby and Castlevania. Resident Evil is one I'd like to tackle because the quality's been so wild in that franchise. So much to talk about. Call of Duty might also be fun because damn, we've had some low points in that franchise. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the tier list, and until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.